If someone had told me a year ago that a single question would change everything I knew about myself, my boundaries, my role as a mother, even my sense of right and wrong, I would have laughed. But now, the echo of that night lives in the corners of my mind like a shadow I can't shake. It started so simply, so innocently. My son needed help, and I wanted to be there for him. Jake had always been more sensitive than most boys his age. He wasn't like his father, hard-edged, emotionally closed off, always rushing through moments that required stillness. From the day Jake was born, he clung to me like I was the only shelter in a storm. And for years I was. Our house was quiet, nestled at the edge of a sleepy suburb where nothing ever really happened. My husband David worked long hours at an insurance firm downtown. When he wasn't buried in spreadsheets, he was absorbed in golf or the evening news. Our conversations had grown thin over the years, reduced to logistics, bills, dinner plans. Love had long since packed its bags, quietly slipping out sometime around our 12th anniversary, and neither of us bothered to chase after it. Jake, on the other hand, filled that emotional void in ways I never quite acknowledged until much later. We shared late-night talks, cooked together, and sometimes watched old movies on the worn couch that David never used. When I laughed at Jake's stories or ruffled his unruly dark hair, something warm would settle in my chest, a feeling I hadn't felt in years. Not from my husband. Not from anyone. It was on one of those evenings, thick with summer heat and quiet tension, that Jake came into my room. "Mom," he said, standing in the doorway, his voice unusually small. "Can I ask you something kind of weird?" I set aside the laundry I was folding. "Of course. What's up?" He hesitated, looking at the floor. His hands were in the pockets of his jeans, shoulders tense. I noticed then how much he'd grown. 19 now. Taller than me. Still boyish in some ways, but with a jawline that was beginning to sharpen, eyes that carried more weight than they should. There's this girl I like. Sophie. She's in my lit class." I smiled. "That's great, honey. Have you asked her out?" "No. I mean, not yet." "That's the thing." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I like her, but I don't know what I'm doing with, intimacy, sex." The word hung between us like a bell that had just been rung too loudly. I blinked. "Okay, I don't want to mess it up," he said quickly. "I know you probably don't want to hear about this, but I can't ask Dad. And my friends just talk crap. You're the only person I trust to be real with me." A part of me wanted to laugh, to brush it off and tell him to figure it out like everyone else. But another part, the mother part, understood the gravity of what he was saying. This wasn't just about sex. It was about vulnerability, fear, trust. "Jake," I said carefully, "it's completely normal to feel nervous. But this isn't something I can really coach you through. You'll learn as you go. Sophie will understand." He frowned, frustrated. "That's just it. I don't want to learn on someone else. I don't want to screw up and make her uncomfortable. I don't know, practice." A silence settled between us. Not the usual, comfortable kind. This one was thick with discomfort. "Practice?" I echoed. "Not like that," he said quickly. "I mean just stuff like how to talk to her. What to do. How to touch someone without making it awkward. You always know what to say. You always made me feel safe." His voice cracked a little at the end, and that's what got me. That old familiar ache, the one that had stirred in my chest all those nights. I found him crying after a nightmare when he was little, tightened. He sat down beside me on the bed. Close. His shoulder brushed mine. "I just don't want to be weird or mess it up. I need someone who won't judge me." I swallowed hard. "Jake, I love you. And I'm here for you. But there are some lines that—" "I know," he interrupted. "I'm not asking you to do anything. Just help me understand how to be with someone. Like emotionally, physically. You've been with Dad forever. You know what makes people feel safe." Safe. That word again. I looked at my son, really looked. His eyes weren't predatory or inappropriate. They were desperate, vulnerable. And suddenly, I saw not a boy or even a man, but a person on the edge of something terrifying, desire. And he was reaching out to me. Something cracked in me. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was years of loneliness. Maybe I'd just grown too used to being his anchor. But I nodded. Okay, I said softly. We can talk. Just talk. That's all. His face lit up in relief. He leaned in and hugged me, tighter than he had in years. Thank you, he whispered. You don't know what this means. I hugged him back. But even as I did, a chill crawled down my spine. Because I already knew this wasn't going to end the way either of us thought. For days after that conversation, I tried to pretend everything was normal. I told myself what I always told myself when it came to things I didn't want to face. It was just a moment. But moments are dangerous. They carry seeds, and if you're not careful, they grow into things you never meant to water. Jake didn't bring it up again. Not at first. He was quiet, respectful. But there was something different in the air between us, an invisible tension, like we'd both heard a sound no one else in the world could hear. I noticed how he looked at me a little longer than he used to. Not in a disrespectful way, but in a way that made me aware of my skin. One evening, as twilight filtered gold through the living room blinds, Jake sat down beside me on the couch. The TV was on, playing a sitcom neither of us was watching. His presence was heavier than usual. Can we talk? He asked. I paused. About Sophie? Sort of. He turned to face me fully. You said we could talk about intimacy.
I've been thinking about that.
Like how people connect. Emotionally. Physically. What makes someone feel safe and wanted? I nodded slowly. That's a complex thing. Exactly, he said. And I don't want to be just about sex. I want to understand how someone feels when they're close to someone. How to read them. How to give and not just take. He was serious. More serious than most 19-year-olds I'd known. His eyes searched mine, not for approval, but for access. Okay, I said cautiously. What do you want to know? Jake looked down at his hands. Can we try something? Nothing bad. Just can I hold you? Like how I would if it were Sophie. I froze. The air thickened. My heart beat slower, then faster. My mind spun through the possibilities, the warnings, the lines. But then I looked at him, truly looked, and all I saw was my son. Nervous.
Kind.
Needing someone. Needing me. All right, I said quietly. He moved closer and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into an embrace that was tender, too tender. His chin rested lightly on my shoulder. I closed my eyes and told myself it was innocent, that mothers hug sons all the time. But something about it wasn't. This wasn't a hug between mother and child. It lingered too long. It breathed too deeply. I feel calm, he whispered. I didn't respond. My throat had tightened. His fingers gently brushed my back, not with the casualness of comfort, but with intention. And in that moment, I realized how long it had been since anyone touched me that way. Still, I didn't pull away. Instead, I stayed. And that was the moment I failed. The next evening, it got worse. I was in the kitchen, rinsing off dinner plates, when Jake entered quietly. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood near the doorway, watching me. His silence wasn't accusing, it was expectant. Did you want something? I asked, not turning around. He stepped closer. I was thinking about last night. My hands trembled slightly beneath the warm water. I shut off the tap. I was too, I admitted. We probably need to be careful. That kind of closeness can get confusing. I wasn't confused, he said. I turned, drying my hands slowly. Jake. He crossed the room in 2 quiet steps and placed his hand gently over mine. I just want to know what it's like to be close to someone who doesn't hurt you, he said. To be with someone who sees you, who stays. That undid me. Because I knew that feeling too well. I had spent years being unseen, being tolerated instead of cherished. I didn't realize how hungry I'd become for something warm, for something real, until it was standing in front of me wearing my son's face. He leaned in and kissed my cheek.
Soft.
Lingering. Jake, I whispered. But before I could say more, he kissed me again. This time not on the cheek. It was slow, hesitant, a question wrapped in trembling lips. I pulled away, my breath catching in my throat. This can't happen. His face fell, pain flickering across it like a storm cloud blocking out the sun. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I whispered. But we crossed something we shouldn't have. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean I don't love you. But it's not love like that. Silence stretched between us.
Thick. Crushing.
He backed away slowly. I'm sorry. I nodded. Me too. He left the kitchen, and the sound of his retreating footsteps echoed louder than any scream. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the kitchen floor like it could rearrange the past. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, and I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. Her eyes looked too tired to be innocent. Her lips were still tingling with shame. I didn't cry.
Not then.
That would come later. What I felt in that moment was worse than sorrow. It was clarity, the kind that only comes when you realize you've stepped too far into a room that was never meant to be opened, and the air is different now. And no matter how tightly you shut the door, you'll always know what it felt like to be on the other side. There are some silences that don't heal with time. After that night in the kitchen, Jake and I retreated into separate orbits. We shared a home, but not a world. Our conversations became short, transactional. The air in the house had changed. It carried the weight of something we'd both felt and couldn't unfeel. For days, I avoided his eyes. I moved through the house, as if haunted by a ghost that hadn't died yet. I went to bed early, woke up late. I left meals in the fridge with notes instead of words. My reflection grew thinner in the mirror, not in body, but in soul. David didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't ask. He never did. Jake, to his credit, gave me space. He didn't knock on my door, didn't linger near me the way he used to. But his presence loomed everywhere, like perfume that lingers after someone has left the room. I could feel him watching sometimes from down the hallway from across the living room. There was no accusation in his gaze, only a quiet grief. I began to wonder if guilt could alter the texture of time. Days felt heavier. Nights were like molasses, slow, dark, suffocating. One afternoon, I found a letter outside my bedroom door. Just one sheet of notebook paper, folded once. My name in his handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Mom.
I'm sorry.
For everything. I didn't know what I was asking from you. I thought I needed guidance. I didn't realize I was asking you to carry pain I wasn't ready to understand. What happened was my fault. I know you tried to draw the line. I crossed it anyway. You've always been the one person who saw me. Maybe that's why I got lost. I confused comfort with closeness, love with something else. I hope one day you can forgive me. I've decided to move out. Sophie's brother has an extra room. I think space will be good for both of us. Please don't blame yourself. Love you always, Jake. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the ink blur near the bottom of the page. My hands were trembling. He was leaving, and part of me knew it was the right thing. But another part, the one that remembered his first steps, his fevered nights, the way he used to fall asleep curled against my chest, ached with a loss I couldn't explain. I walked into his room after I read the letter. It was already half-packed. Drawers open. Closet half-empty. The framed photo on his desk, us at the beach, 6 years ago, had been turned face down. I sat on his bed, took a deep breath, and whispered into the quiet. I'm sorry, too. But he wasn't there to hear it. That night, over dinner, David looked up from his plate and said, Jake mentioned he's moving out. I nodded.
Yeah.
It's time. David chewed slowly, then said, probably for the best. Kids need to learn independence. We've done our part. There was no warmth in his voice. No curiosity. Just finality. I looked at him, and for the first time in years, I truly saw him. The absence in his eyes. The way he had learned to live without me. And I, without him. We'd been ghosts in the same house, and neither of us had tried to haunt each other in years. I suddenly realized I wasn't mourning Jake leaving. I was mourning what his leaving revealed. The following weekend, Jake came to get the rest of his things. He didn't say much. We didn't hug. He gave me a small smile, bittersweet, broken. As he walked toward the door, I called out, "Jake?" He paused. "I do forgive you," I said. "And I hope you forgive me too." He nodded. "I already did." And then he was gone. The house was quieter after that, but not in a peaceful way. I spent weeks reevaluating everything. Who I'd become, what I'd let slide, what I'd confused for love. My loneliness hadn't been an excuse, and Jake's vulnerability hadn't been an invitation. But together, we had stepped into a space that should have remained locked. Still, it wasn't evil. It was just human. Painfully, terribly human. The kind of mistake that can only be made by two people who loved too much in the wrong way. Months passed. One morning, I got a text from Jake. "Sophie and I are doing well. We're taking things slow. Thank you for teaching me what real love isn't. I think now I'm ready to learn what it is." I stared at the message for a long time. No tears came. Just a quiet warmth. A kind of peace that felt earned, not gifted. And maybe that's what redemption really is. Not being erased of guilt, but learning to live with it and beyond it. I didn't reply right away. I let the moment settle in its place. Not everything broken needs fixing. Some things just need understanding.